Wow, got record twice. Hey, so first of all, I want to thank Professor Wakefield for inviting me into class today. I've actually gotten to know Professor Wakefield and his dad over the last few years since I purchased SBRnet about 5 years ago, and they've been big advocates for what it is that we do. And what we do is that we are in the business of providing data focused on sports fans. Um, SBRnet stands for Sports Business Research Network. I am the president, Neil Schwartz. I actually have, I even cringe when I say this. I have like 30 years of experience in market research, 25 of which in sports. Um, as you're going to find out, I really love the sports business. And there's a bunch of reasons. And I'm not going to give you the reason why until we're a little bit further into this. But I love sports. And there's a definitive three-word answer why I do love sports so much. But in the world of sports sponsorship, there is really no better tool at your disposal than data, fandom data specifically. When you come in, you talk to a team, you talk to a league, you talk to a brand, whatever it is, the tone, the tenor, everything about a meeting changes when you talk about data because then they know you're serious. Then they know you've done your homework. And, we're going to talk a little bit about using data, how to use data. We're going to use a specific example. I'm going to focus on the WNBA today. We're going to focus on one category just because I know I don't have uh, Professor Wakefield. What's the timing for this class?
Up to you. I think we scheduled 11:30. But if we need to spend a few more, we love to
Well,
have you. So I guess
as
let's
you know,
try
I find it I
12:30.
find it hard to control myself once I start talking about my favorite subject. But so
Feeling.
what we're going to do is we're going to divide the kind of the session into three. Now I'm going to warn you all, so listen very carefully. I'm going to call on you whether you raise your hands or not. I don't know your names, and I'm sorry about that. I wish I did, but I don't. But I am going to try to call on you based on what you're wearing, and where you're sitting in the room. Look, just answer the question. I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm not trying to make life hard for you. What I'm trying is to get you involved a little bit in this process because, quite frankly, when you're involved in the process, A, it makes my job easier, and B, it's more fun. And I'm going to get back to this whole fun thing shortly. But again, my name's Neil Schwartz. I am president of SBRnet. I have owned it for almost 6 years now. Um, and we are really, in many ways, we are considered the gold standard of sports fandom data. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But what I'm like to do now is I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. I promise not to go through a whole bunch, too many slides. Oh, what just happened here? Oh,
We
okay.
see it.
Okay. No, it's so weird. I got a weird like message on my screen. Okay. So again, my company is SBRnet, Sports Business Research Network. We focus on sports fandom. That is my primary area of interest. Now, I do provide data in other areas, including participation of sports and fitness and activities, as well as the sales of equipment, footwear, and apparel. So, I bring it when it comes to sports data. But what we're going to focus on today is using data to really define, benchmark, and then measure for helping you grow sports sponsorship opportunities. Look, I will tell you that a lot of you, when you get out of school, I'm curious, how many of you, and just by show of hands, would like to work in the sports business once you get out of school? Show of hands? Me. I think that's good. Sports business is a great business, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why in a few minutes. But using data, can be really a tool that can help you, really get well beyond those that aren't using data because data is really a wonderful tool. It helps to identify all different types of situations but more importantly, it allows you to define who you want to talk to. It allows you to benchmark how you want to talk to them. It allows you to measure. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term ROI, return on investment. It's going to allow you to measure return on investment It's going to allow you to grow revenue. But the bottom line is, and I use this expression a lot, you can't monitor what you can't measure. So our goal here is to give you a couple of different measurement tools in the form of what they call KPIs or key performance indicators. You're going to hear that expression KPI a lot, probably, as you continue with your education and once you get into your, job internships and once you get into jobs. But really, it's all about understanding KPIs, establishing them, monitoring them, benchmarking them. I mean, this is what I like to do. And this is what I also like to encourage students to do. I help students in a variety of different ways. I work with teams, I've worked with leagues, I work with brands, I've worked with associations, not for profits, you name it. I mean, I have really been involved. I've had my hand in all sorts of different aspects of the sports business. And look, quite frankly, I know a lot of you would love to go to work for the Dallas Stars or the Dallas Cowboys out of school as the assistant general manager, but you know what? Most likely that's not going to happen. But what could happen is that you could get a job in sales, in sponsorship sales. You could get a job in ticket sales. You could get a job in customer service. There's an awful lot of ways to get into the sports business, believe me. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to just kind of breeze through a couple of things. Number one, about me, I have over 25 years of experience in the sports business, 30 years in market research. I cringe whenever I say that. I'm just not some guy that Dr. Wakefield pulled off the street and said, "Hey, Neil, you want to come in, talk about research and data?" No, I've been doing this for quite some time. And I've been lucky. I've been lucky because I've been able to really cut across a wide variety of businesses, situations, places, people. I've met some great people. I've met some people that I always wonder about how they got their jobs. But again, it's always been about sports for me. I've worked in with leading financial institutions. I worked on the Under Armour IPO. I worked on the Crocs IPO. I've worked on a number of major situations, but always about the data. I'm all about the data. My daughter, who 39 now, likes to call me the oldest living data geek or oldest living data nerd. I was doing data before it was cool, quite frankly. And I tell a little anecdote, and I told it earlier about how I kind of got started, with data and all that. One of you keep that kind of question reserved because you know what? That's a good question to ask at the end of the session about how I got started in data and why data. So my company, SBRnet, our primary function is to collect data focused on sports fans about their fandom habits and behaviors. Let's see, who do I want to call? There's a young lady, first table over, I guess, left, red hair. Sorry, I don't know your first name. What is your first name?
Darby.
Hi, Darby. How are you? I'm Neil.
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Did you have a nice holiday?
Yeah, it was really relaxing.
Did you hang with family?
Yeah.
Me too. Family's great. So let me ask you a question though. Did you watch any games over the Thanksgiving holiday?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I even went to a bunch. I went to two hockey games. I watched a bunch of football. Let me ask you a question. Tell me your definition of fandom or what goes into sports fandom.
I would say like being a fanatic, like you watch every single game of like that team, and know the players and know their stats and everything.
Yeah, that's a small part of it. And the fanatic thing is really a small part of it because you can be a sports fan, not be a fanatic. Although the derivative of the word fan obviously is fanatic. I don't know the Latin and all that, but it's there somewhere. But again, but fandom really is made up of a wide variety of categories, a wide variety of areas. There's a gentleman sitting in the back with his arms folded, wearing what looks like a green sweatshirt and maybe a Baylor hat. Am I right? Or not?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
All
Uh,
right. What do you think goes into sport? What's your first name?
Coy.
Coy, nice to meet you. I'm Neil.
Nice to meet you, Neil.
Tell me a little bit about what you think goes into sports fandom.
I would say your passion for the team or a player. I would say how much you think that team or player represents yourself.
I would also say, I guess, I don't know, like overall likeness and yeah, yeah.
You- the truth is, all those things go into sports fandom, but there's so much more, Coy. You know, there's things like, do you attend games live? Do you watch games via streaming, or do you prefer to watch them via traditional cable or satellite? Um, do you interact on social media with your teams, with players, with coaches, with, you know, excuse me, other fans? Do you buy licensed merch? I mean, over the weekend, I went to two Florida Panther games. I spent about $300 in licensed merchandise for both me, my wife, and my children. And so again, I bought licensed merch. Do you gamble on your team? Do you play fantasy sports? Do you contribute to the charities that the teams like to support? There are so many things that go into sports fandom. It's not just about being a fanatic. It's not just about liking a team. It's really how you interact with that team in terms of your specific habits and behaviors. And believe me, there are different kinds of fans. Like an example, I hate to use myself, but I consider myself a long-suffering Miami Dolphin fan. But let's say I'm a fan that tends to watch. I don't go to live games. I don't buy licensed merch for the Dolphins. I don't gamble on the Dolphins. I don't even pick any Dolphins on my fantasy team. I just don't interact much, but I watch the games. Am I worth more or less to the Miami Dolphins, gentlemen in the front? I guess on that same table with the gentleman that I picked on Coy already. Am I worth more or less to the Miami Dolphins than a fan who gambles, than a fan who maybe travels to support the team, than a fan who buys licensed merch, a fan who gambles, or even a fan that likes to support various brands and sponsors that make up that team? Am I more or less valuable?
Probably less.
Probably less. Probably right. I am less valuable because I don't interact with as many of the different aspects that go in to making a sports fan. So every year, my company, SBRnet, we do a large annual study of sports fans, and we do it in the first quarter of each year. Now, it says 6,000. Last year, we interviewed over 7,000. So I do need to change that at some point. But what we do is we collect a large random sample of sports fans from around the country. And how many of you have made Legos over the years? I mean, I know I love to do it with my grandsons. How many? So a Lego is basically a scale model of a bigger thing, a building, the Batmobile, whatever it might be. So that's what I do. I essentially build a scale model of the sports fan here in the United States, ages 13 and above. And I use geographic region, income, household size, age, gender, race, and ethnicity. So that's just like using Legos. I use red Legos. I use yellow Legos. I use orange Legos. I use blue ones. I use yellow ones. I use whatever colors. The idea is that I build my model of the U.S. sports fan. And in this case, I collected over 7,000 sports fans. I then take that data and I put it through what they call a weighting process to equal or represent 282.5 million people here in the United States. So what I'm doing is I'm picking a sample, building a model, and then weighting it to equal a larger portion of the population. Now, this is what I would call classic quantitative methodology. Who can explain to me the difference between quantitative research and qualitative research? There's a young lady back table in the far right hand corner. I don't know if it's my right or your right, but you're wearing like a white sweatshirt.
So quantitative is like more numbers based, and then I would say qualitative is like categories like colors, teams, like gender.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, that's a correct answer. Quantitative is all numbers based. You know, 5,000 people do this. Um, 10,000 people do that, whatever it might be. So, being able to assign a quantitative value. Remember, I said earlier, very important that you look at KPIs or measurements, things that you can measure, because why? You can't monitor what you can't measure. And I believe in that. I stand by that. I know I say it a lot, but it's true. You can't monitor what you can't measure. But when you're doing sponsorship or you're doing anything using data, I like to focus on a process. And the reason why I like to focus on a process is two things. Number one, it keeps me aligned. I can be a little bit, I can get all over the place, a little squirrely, but we all can. So I want to keep myself focused. And in fact, using data, my favorite metaphor is when I use data for a presentation, it's almost like I'm using a GPS to tell me my turn by turn directions. Turn left here, turn right there, go straight here, stop at the light here. So again, as I mentioned, our data measures sports fans. This is just a graphic representation of what we do. We collect data that represents over 282.5 million Americans ages 13 and above. And the data that we collect comes from 23 sports. So I'm literally measuring pretty much every major professional team sport. I'm measuring minor league hockey and baseball, individual sports like golf, like tennis, like MMA, like esports, auto racing. We do an amazing job on auto racing. And really it's an area that I love to talk about. But all of these categories that you see up on the screen right now make up fandom. Every one of them, because these are literally what is part of being a sports fan, and it's very all encompassing. Being a sports fan, you can be a passive fan like me, couch potato kind of fan, hangs out on the couch, watches a Dolphin game like I did yesterday, screamed at the TV a little bit, but you know what? Still not buying any merch. Still not traveling to support the team in an away game. Still not gambling on the Dolphins. Still not choosing any Dolphin players on my fantasy team. Still not supporting any of the Dolphin charities. Don't pay attention to whatever they're doing. I don't go to live games. I don't. I just don't. I do go to live hockey games, but not live football games. But again, fandom has a variety of components, a variety of things that go into it. One of the things we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk a little bit about women's sports, specifically the WNBA, and also we're going to talk about a specific category when it comes to sponsorship, which will, by the way, be what they call fast casual dining, or they used to call fast food. Need a drink. So sorry. So when I'm doing a project, this is my starting point. I always like to think of things as a funnel. And when a funnel, what do? You're pouring a lot of stuff into the top of the funnel, and then the stuff that you want goes down to the bottom of the funnel. Well, that's the way I look at things when I'm doing a project. I want to throw as much data in there as I can, indiscriminate of whether I think it's good data, bad data, useful, or useless. I just want to throw it in there. What I'm going to hope that's going to happen is the data that I want, or the data that I need, or the data that I'm going to choose is going to travel down the bottom of the funnel into my little cup or into my bowl. And then the stuff that I don't need, or the crap, stays up top. And that's the way you kind of look at things. You just want to pick out those data points that you think are going to be important. So the next thing that I like to do is this thing called a storyboard. Have any of you ever seen a storyboard in any other context? It's okay. I started using this about 10, 12 years ago. I found myself when I was working on a presentation, sometimes I wasn't organized. I wasn't able to get my thoughts organized. I wasn't able to get myself organized. So I do these storyboards. And in fact, I even have a template done so that I can write, I can literally sit and write on it. I can type it. In this case, I can do whatever I want. But it always starts with my subject, where I define my objectives. What was my subject? My subject is sponsorship. Define my objectives. We want to grow fast casual dining sponsorship for the WNBA. And by the way, I just picked out the WNBA randomly. There was no. How many of you have been to a WNBA game just out of curiosity? One, two,
So
three.
we got
All right. Look, the WNBA is growing, and they're growing by incredible numbers, and I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. But the WNBA is an interesting sport to work with right now because it presents a lot of very what I would call target-rich environment for brands, for sponsorships. So once you determine your subject matter, once you define your objectives, you're going to define what they call your key performance indicators. You're going to hear the term KPI a lot. It's going to be used when you get out of school. What are your KPIs? What are your key performance indicators? Remember, I talked about you can't monitor what you can't measure? Guess what? You can't monitor what you don't have a KPI for. So the idea is you got to understand what are my KPIs. If I'm going to try to grow sponsorship revenue, well, the KPI might be revenue. If I want to grow sponsorship opportunities, it may just be the number of sponsors might be by KPI. But establish what KPI you want to use as the basis for your measurement. Remember, I said it like 10 times. Can't monitor what you can't measure. Learned that a long time ago. So as you're starting to understand that, you're now starting to get a little, you're starting to draw yourself in a little bit more. You're starting to define your primary and secondary targets. Well, our primary target in this case are fans of the WNBA. Our secondary target, though, might be female fans of the WNBA. And I'm going to show you why in a few minutes. But again, you're going to start to define your primary and secondary targets. And how do you do that? The next box talks about the who, the what, the when, the where, the what, the where, and the how. What's missing from that box? Anybody want to chime in on that one?
Why?
Why? Why do you think it's missing? Just out of curiosity. Who was it that said that? Was that Coy again?
No, sorry, I'm on the other side. You can't see me.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. What's your name?
I'm Marissa.
Hi, Marissa. I'm Neil.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Why is why important?
It's important just because it's like you can't do something unless you have a why for why you're doing it, if that makes sense.
It does, because it does. In fact, there's this famous business author. His name is Simon Sinek, Sinek. And his first book is called First Ask Why. Because when you understand the why, everything else tends to fall into place. The who, the what, the when, the where, and the how. But why is a tough question to answer? Marissa, why do you think why is a tough question to answer?
Um, it kind of just depends on the topic and the thing. I'm an advertising minor, and so we kind of learned that
Hmm,
you're not necessarily supposed to put why in a story because you can't necessarily explain the why because everyone has a different why.
you're right. Why people do what they do is the single hardest aspect of market research to explain. Psychologists try to do it, sociologists try to do it, anthropologists try to do it. Everybody but everybody tries to figure out the why. And you know what? It's different for everybody, Marissa, because our motivations for doing what we do are just different. But I always do one thing. I do find that why is generally better answered via a qualitative situation versus a quantitative situation. Because why can get into, a little bit more warm and fuzzy kind of things. I do this because of this, or I like this because this. Again, it's a why question, really harder to answer, but it all fits into this who, what, when, where, how, and then why. I know it usually goes a different way, but that's the way I do it. But just to always think about the why question. Always have that in the back of your mind. First, Simon Sinek, first ask why. But once you're able to, define your objectives, determine your key performance indicators, determine who you want to go after, in this case, whoops, got to get rid of this guy. I thought I did get rid of this guy. Okay. Key performance indicators, and all that. You want to start picking out data to create insights using a variety of different data points. And what those data points will lead you to is a story. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to stop my share for a second, and I'm going to hopefully take you to the SBRnet site, which I got on the first try. What do you know?
Today's your day.
Hey, like, can I tell you? December 1st. This was actually my, well, I'll clue you in on a little piece of personal information. I've been married more than once, and this is the date of my first marriage. Now, I've been married more than once, and my ex-wife actually sends me a happy non-anniversary text message about 5 minutes ago. A little crazy. What can I tell you? So this is SBRnet. Every one of you has access to SBRnet via the Baylor University Library website. All you have to do is go on the website, go to the database lookup section, type in SBRnet and Viola. It's there. No usernames, no passwords. It is an incredible, excuse me, wealth of information. You'd be hard pressed to find more data about sports fans anywhere else, even on ChatGPT. We're figuring out a way, by the way, to get our data on ChatGPT, but the problem is I can't secure it, so may not be able to do it. But so what I like to do is when I go to this site, I always love to start up here in my upper right-hand corner, with my general topic. In this case, it's WNBA. Now, what we've got is I've got a group of analysts who are every day. Oh, look, they started posting articles already this morning. They post articles every morning focused on the specific things that we like to cover at SBRnet when it comes to sports fans. I've got three analysts, and they have assigned different publications. But the idea is that we put this information up there to give you a good overview of what's going on. In this case, Dallas Wings have the first have the number one draft choice, which will most likely be good for them. Hold on for a second. So that's the first place I start. The second place I start, remember, we want to keep asking those questions, is I like to go to the summary section. And I like to go over here to single sports summaries. I click on select all. I then go all the way over here to the right and I select WNBA. Now I'm going to make this a little bigger because for some reason it made it a little smaller. Can we all see that? So now we had kind of a weird intermittent experience with the WNBA back from 2016 to 2020. But since 2021, everything is cool. So obviously we look at the 4 years of data starting in 2021. I forget everything before that, like it didn't exist. But so this number right here shows this number's in thousands, which means you read that as 28,270,000. In 2021, the NBA had 28,270,000 fans. Look what they have now in 2024. 59,013,000. I expect that number to jump significantly again when we put up our new numbers in March. They have literally over doubled their fan base in 4 years. That right there alone is an amazing statistic. If you're going in to pitch a brand, you're going in to pitch the team, that statistic alone will get people to sit up in their chair and take notice. I guarantee it. Now, number of people attending games, we've also seen that number jump up significantly from 1.6 million, stayed there about 1.65, up to 2.1, now up to almost 3.7 million. So again, ginormous leap in the number of people that attend games. See, what's very important is when you're looking at data, don't just look at one data point, look at the trend. Look at the trend. So let's look at that. Percent of people who attended 2+ games went from 62.7, went down to 59.3, down again to 57.3, and then in 2024 hit an all-time high of 65.9. 65.8%. Let's call it 66%. Anybody want to chime in? There's a gentleman sitting in the back. Looks like he's wearing kind of a green shirt. Uh, I can't even tell. Looks like an Eagle shirt, but I know it's not. Dark hair.
Right.
Anybody? Somebody answer.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry.
you. Yeah. What's your first name?
Brian.
What's the Hawaii, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You have good eyes for an old dude.
Sure thing.
Tell me, tell me why NBA attendance has gone up so precipitously year over year.
There's been, I think, more push towards it, and you've seen the rise of stars like Caitlin Clark as Sabrina ISQ to the game, which is kind of fun bands.
You just said it. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, they have generated a lot of excitement, a lot of new energy. Look at this. The number of people viewing on TV. Back in 2021, it was 27.4 million. Now up to 40 million, almost 41 million people. Those are big jumps. That's a big story. That's big news. So again, these are the kinds of data points that you want to be focusing on when you're talking with either brands, teams, whatever it is. But make sure that you are referring. I had somebody do a presentation for me, and let's just say this particular person called this 59,000. And when he was all done, I said, "Look, the first thing he did is you got to add your three zeros. It's not 59,000; it's 59 million. That's a big difference." I said, so if you're going to play with the numbers, get the numbers right. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to another section on the site. Whoops, my grandchildren. The premium section. The premium section is really cool, and I'll tell you why. The premium section has all of the fan data, and it's already pre-extracted into some really interesting files. I'm going to show you specifically what we call the brand files. So I click here on brands. You have access to this, by the way. Thank you, Professor Wakefield and Dad, for doing that. But if I go here to the WNBA brand file, and I actually already have it pulled up, I'm going to pull it up. Actually, I'm not sharing, am I? Or am I? Yes, I am. Let's see here. WNBA. Can you guys all see that now?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. Sometimes things work. So, what are we going to talk about? We know we're going to talk about the WNBA, and first we're going to pick fast food or fast casual dining. I know I'm running out of time. But what do we know? Well, we know that there's 57,202,000 NBA fans, of which 31.6 million, it's called 31.7 are male, 25.5 are female. But we know, for instance, that the number one selling or the number one most preferred brand of fast food is McDonald's. How many of you are McDonald's fans, just out of curiosity? How many of you are Chick-fil-A fans? How many of you are Starbucks fans? Here's my point. Look, McDonald's is far and away the number one most preferred fast food brand for fans of the WNBA. But look at what the number two is. It's not Burger King. It's not Wendy's. It's not anything else. It's Chick-fil-A. That surprised me when I looked at the data. And you know what? It might also surprise Chick-fil-A. But if I was Chick-fil-A and I had that number, I would be running in right now to the Dallas Wings, get my appointment, and I would be presenting this data to show them why Chick-fil-A either one needs to be a sponsor if they're not, or two needs to enlarge their commitment to Chick-fil-A needs to enlarge their commitment to the Wings. Why? They are the number two most preferred fast food, fast casual dining. But here's another point. Look at Starbucks real quickly. And this is something that I brought up before. I'm going to highlight it in yellow. So Starbucks is number three. And what's the unique thing? I'm highlighting it right now. I'm going to highlight it in different colors. Somebody's going to tell me a story. So somebody get ready to tell me a story. What is the unique thing about Starbucks as it relates to the WNBA? Anybody want to take a shot at it? Yeah, what's your first name?
I'm Jocelyn.
Hi, Jocelyn. I'm Neil.
Nice to meet you. I think it's interesting because more females prefer Starbucks than males compared to the others, more male.
You bet. So if the Dallas Wings are interested in attracting more female fans, you know what? They might want to make try to approach Starbucks, or Starbucks might even want to approach them. But the idea is you're using data to identify that who, the what, the when, the where, the how, but not the why yet. The why is a little bit more complicated, as I said. But again, so all of a sudden, the number three most preferred fast food or fast casual dining is Starbucks, but they're the ones who kind of flipping the script. And actually, you know who else flips the script? Taco Bell. This surprised me too, by the way, in that they have a higher percentage of female fans over male. But again, it's not huge. But again, when you're trying to answer the questions, when you're looking for secondary, primary, and secondary markets, you want to look to the data to guide you. It's very important to look to the data to guide you. Now, I know I'm already probably over time. I'm used to that by now. So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to see if there are any questions that any. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your participation. You guys have been great, by the way. You answered a lot of great questions. I realize, I put some of you on the spot, and by, just kind of calling your name out. Um, but again, I appreciate you being a good sport about it and not kind of blowing me off. I do appreciate that. Um, what would be really nice is if you followed me on social media, or followed SBRnet on LinkedIn, it's SBRnet. On Instagram, it's SBRnet Data. And I don't know what the hell it is on Twitter because I don't really know what Twitter is anymore. So I don't even post on Twitter, but it is SBRnet or R net SP. I don't know. I don't understand. But you know what? Follow us. You know what? And if you're interested in when the time comes, if you're interested in an internship and you want to maybe get an internship with SBRnet, I do hire interns. So if you're looking for an internship for the spring or for summer, and you think you've got some good skills and you'd maybe like to learn a little bit more about analytics, I'm a good boss and I'm flexible. So Professor, are there any questions?
Anybody got one they want to fire out before we say bye to Neil?
Come on, there's got to be one.
Yes, go ahead.
So when you were talking about storyboarding and like
Yeah.
storytelling with the data, like what is some of your advice or things you think that we should do to like make that data like enticing or really be able to tell a story with it?
Well, I think the first thing is that you need to not be careful not to get too many data points and not get overwhelmed. Find like two or three data points that you can hang your hat on and work with that. Tell a story. Keep it simple. Don't try to, don't try to answer too many questions. Just, look, one, as an example, Chick-fil-A is the number two most preferred fast casual dining choice for WNBA fans. Two, um, Chick-fil-A has Starbucks has a higher percentage of women that prefer Starbucks over men. Same thing's true with Taco Bell. So again, you want to be able to help them use the data directionally. And that's the way you would do it to tell a story. Primary target market, fast casual dining. Number one could be Chick-fil-A. Number two could be Starbucks. Boom, boom. You've got your primary and your secondary markets. And then within your secondary markets, you have, reaching women better than you are men. Any more questions?
We got a
Yes.
few. Go here first and then.
Hi, Neil. When you're talking about internships and your interns, what have some of your favorite or most successful interns been really good at? Or what traits do you see in your most memorable?
The biggest thing I want my interns to come away with is the ability to tell a story. Let me just share a real quick thing here. I've been in the data business 30 years, and the one thing that I talk to CEOs about, I talk to directors of marketing, you name it, is that they love people that aren't afraid to use data and know how to use data. But you know what they love even more? They love that person that knows how to tell a story with data because most people don't have time. They want to use the data, they want to understand it, but they don't have the time to to tell the story. The biggest thing I like to teach my interns is tell me a story. An interesting case was when my data first came out at the beginning of the year. Professor Wakefield, I hope I'm not going too far over here, but
Yeah.
at the very beginning when my data came out, there was something that interested me. Look, like everybody else, I've been following along with the whole Travis Kelsey, Taylor Swift thing. I mean, for some stupid reason, I've been in that. I've been following along. I don't know why. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan per se. I like the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'm not a fan. But I do like them. But I was just curious to see how much of a difference, Taylor Swift was able to make for the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of fan growth. Here it is. You ready? So, how many of you have heard Dallas Cowboys referred to as America's team? I'm from Philadelphia. I hate the Dallas Cowboys. Genetically ingrained in my DNA to hate the Dallas Cowboys. Sorry, just do. When I saw that they were no longer America's team, that I saw that the Kansas City Chiefs had grown to having a higher fan base, a larger fan base than the Dallas Cowboys, I immediately set one of my analysts off to tell me why. And what was the reason? Well, not why. What was the reason? Not why, but how. One, they grew the number of female fans by over 50%. Two, they grew the number of Gen Z fans, younger fans like you guys, by over 80%. So, that's the kind of thing that I like to have our analysts work with. Start with a premise and then use the data to build the premise out. And that's what they did. I had a fun time with that one, by the way.
Last one, Connor.
Yeah.
One more?
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. So you mentioned that you found the discipline of motorsports really interesting as of late. I just
Yeah.
wanted to like hear more of your thoughts on that and if there are any like specific disciplines in motorsport like NASCAR, IndyCar
Well,
that particularly caught your interest and why.
well, right now, the interesting thing is we do measure three aspects. I measure Formula One, IndyCar, and NASCAR. And unfortunately, while they've been able to grow the number of auto racing fans a little bit, they're playing a little bit of what they call a zero sum game. That means if someone grows, someone goes. Unfortunately, what's happening is Formula One is growing here in the United States without question. It's just no question about it. And it's grown for a variety of reasons. And unfortunately, that growth has come at the expense of both IndyCar racing as well as NASCAR. And by the way, I think that would be a great project for an analyst is to really understand, where are racing fans going. How many of you, by the way, have watched Drive to Survive on Netflix? I have. I couldn't give a rat's you know what about auto racing until I watched Drive to Survive during the pandemic. Now I'm hooked. I'm sitting here this morning watching the highlights from the Formula One race this morning. I think it was in, I forgot, Abu Dhabi or Qatar or one of those Middle Eastern countries and all that. I used to not care. I could care less. But all of a sudden, I got interested. And you know what? A lot of other fans got interested. So what we're seeing is that Formula One has been able to generate a lot of interest. And number two, next year it's going to be even higher because there's going to be an American team joining the grid in Cadillac. Hey, I want to thank Professor Wakefield for inviting me in again. I really enjoyed it. Your questions were terrific. I want to just plant one thing with you. If it doesn't come through that I love this business, that I have done something wrong today. I love sports. I do. I love to watch. I love to go to. Sometimes I've been known to gamble. I love talking about it, but I love sports. And there's really only three words that sustain or that are my why. Do you know what my why is about sports? Sports are fun. If you can't have fun talking about sports, if you can't express an opinion, talk and have fun with it. If you can't have fun, Go do something else for a living. Because for me, every day is fun and it never seems like work. Professor Wakefield, I want to thank you again so much for inviting me into both of your classes today. I appreciate your support. And, I'm hoping maybe I get invited in next term for some of you and when you have to do your sponsorship projects.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Y'all give it up for him.
Thank you, everybody. You all have a great day and a great rest of the week. Thank you, Professor Wakefield.
You bet. Yeah.